Why do men value sex so much in their relationships? Is it biology? Is it because of how they were raised? Or is there something deeper happening underneath the surface? So many women come to me in coaching or therapy and say things like, I don't understand why sex feels like the end-all be-all for him, or he acts so rejected if I'm not in the mood. Here's what I always tell them. Sex is never just sex. For men, it often carries layers of meanings that go far beyond the physical. Today, we're going to unpack all of that. We'll look at sex as an emotional language. We'll look at biology and hormones. We'll look at how identity and self-worth get tied into intimacy, and then we'll break down the relationship patterns that show up when sex and connection get out of balance. And here's the best part. By the end of this video, you're not only going to understand why men value sex so much, but you'll also walk away with tools and insight to strengthen intimacy in your own relationship. First, let's talk about sex as an emotional language. One of the biggest misconceptions about men and sex is that they only want it for physical pleasure, that they're just wired to want it more, and that's the whole story. But the truth is, for many men, sex is actually their primary language of love. Now think about this. Women are often socialized to connect emotionally through words, through sharing, through affection that's verbal and relational. Men, on the other hand, are often not given those same outlets. They're taught to man up, to hide feelings, to not be vulnerable. So where does all that emotional need go? For a lot of men, it gets channeled into sex. Sex becomes the one space where they can feel safe, where they can feel desired, where they can let their guard down and experience closeness. Now here's a little story time. I want you to picture this. A husband works long hours, doesn't talk much about how he's feeling, but the moment his wife or girlfriend reaches out and initiates intimacy, he feels instantly seen, appreciated, and loved. For him, that's the I love you moment. Research even backs this up. Men are more likely to report feeling emotionally connected to their partner after sex, while women are more likely to need emotional closeness before sex. The difference alone explains so much about why couples sometimes get stuck in that cycle of frustration. So if you've ever thought, why does sex mean so much to him? Part of the answer is that it's not just about his body. It's his way of saying, I want to be close to you. I want to feel loved by you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the biological and hormonal influence. Now, of course, biology does play a role, and we can't ignore it. Testosterone is a big player in this. Men typically have 10 to 20 times more testosterone than women, and that hormone drives sexual desire. That's part of why men may think about sex more often or pursue it more frequently. But here's where it gets a little interesting. It's not just about desire. Sex also releases oxytocin, the love hormone, the same one that floods a woman's body during childbirth or breastfeeding to promote bonding. So when men are having sex with their partner, they're not only satisfying desire, they're literally bonding at a chemical level. It's their body's way of saying, yes, this is my person. I feel connected. I feel safe. And honestly, sometimes it's as simple as this. Sex is the emotional charger for men. Think of it like plugging into a battery. After intimacy, they walk away feeling recharged, reassured, and ready to face life again. Now for women, the charger might be deep conversation, affection, quality time. For men, it's often sex. That doesn't make one better than the other. It just makes them different. Let's talk a little bit about identity, ego, and self-worth, because this is where it gets really powerful. For many men, being desired sexually is deeply tied to their sense of identity. It's not just about the act, it's about what the act represents. When their partner says yes, it communicates you're wanted, you're attractive, you matter to me. But when their partner says no, especially over and over again, it doesn't just feel like no to sex. It feels like no to them. I'll never forget a man I worked with who said, when my wife turns me down, I don't just hear no to intimacy. I hear no to me, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not wanted anymore. And this is reinforced by culture. Men grow up with the message that their masculinity is tied to their sexual performance, to being desirable, to being wanted. So when intimacy feels out of reach, it cuts very deep. Now, that doesn't mean that women should feel pressured or obligated. Not at all. It does help us understand why sex carries so much weight for men. It's not about ego in the shallow sense. It's about self-worth. And that's a very vulnerable place. Now, the relationship dynamic. Here's where this shows up most in relationships, the intimacy cycle. Men often pursue sex to feel close. Women often want to feel emotionally close before pursuing sex. What happens? He feels unloved without sex. She feels pressured without emotional closeness. That creates the classic pursue-withdraw cycle. He pursues, she withdraws. She withdraws, he feels rejected and pursues harder. But both partners end up feeling misunderstood and disconnected. But here's the thing, neither partner is wrong. They're simply trying to connect in different ways. And when couples can name that cycle and talk about it openly, it shifts the whole dynamic. Instead of blaming, you only want me for sex, or you never want me, they can say, oh, this is how we're missing each other. This is how we both need to feel close. That shift moves intimacy from being a battleground to being a bridge. Now, beyond the bedroom, the first step is to recognize that while sex is important, it can't be the only way couples connect. For men, yes, it's often the gateway to feeling loved. But they can also learn to express emotions in other ways. And for women, sometimes shifting the way they see sex, less as an obligation and more of an act of emotional connection, can completely change the experience. Now, here are a few practical tips. Talk about the meaning of sex. Have a real conversation about what intimacy represents for each of you. For him, it might mean acceptance. For you, it might mean closeness after a long day. Naming that helps bridge the gap. Shift from obligation to choice. No one wants to feel like a chore. It should be about mutual desire and connection, not pressure. Expand intimacy beyond the bedroom. Men can practice being vulnerable in small ways, such as sharing a fear, asking for support, showing affection without expectation. Women can lean into seeing sex as one of many ways to connect, not just a demand. When both partners broaden their understanding, intimacy becomes richer, deeper, and much more fulfilling. So again, why do men value sex so much? Because for them, it's not just physical, it's emotional language, it's biological wiring, it's tied to their identity and self-worth, and it's the bridge they use to connect with the person they love. When couples understand that, when they stop treating sex as a need versus a duty and start seeing the deeper meaning, it changes everything. Intimacy becomes less about frustration and more about connection, less about pressure and more about partnership. So if this video gave you a new perspective, I'd love for you to hit the like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss more conversations like this. And if you're ready to explore your own intimacy on a deeper level, check out my website at angiedlee.com. You'll find various links to a ton of resources, and you can fill out my questionnaire if you have more concerns. And my resources are simple yet powerful ways to start tuning into your own needs so you can share them with your partner. And remember, intimacy isn't just about what happens in the bedroom. It's the connection you build every single day.